From the Library of Congress in Washington, D.C.
It is my pleasure to present to you Nadia Hashimi, who is a pediatrician from Potomac, Maryland, who also happens to write best-selling novels. Her books include When the Moon is Low and The Pearl That Broke Its Shell, which are rooted in Afghanistan, the home country of her parents. One Half from the East is her first novel for young adults. Set in modern-day Afghanistan, it follows the life of a bacha posh, a preteen girl dressed as a boy. One critic said, One Half from the East is well told through appealing characters, and that it sheds light from a unique cultural perspective on the link between vastly different, rigidly enforced rules for boys and girls and gender identity issues. It's my pleasure to present to you Nadia Hashimi.
Hi, everyone. It's a real pleasure to be here today. We're in a really big space, so I'm going to try to have my voice carry enough. I have my phone with me. I swear this is just to check time and not because I'm going to be texting anyone. So I'll tell you a little bit about where this story came from and why I bothered writing it. As was mentioned, I am a pediatrician. My family came to the United States from Afghanistan. My parents came over in the early 1970s. And they came to Afghanistan because they wanted to kind of explore the opportunities here. But they didn't come because things were as bad in Afghanistan as they are or have been in the past couple of decades. So I come from a family where my mother grew up with sisters who all went to school, who were all encouraged to pursue higher education. My mother became an engineer in Afghanistan. Her sisters worked in the airlines, at the United Nations, in all areas of professional fields. So I grew up with that information, with that knowledge, with that picture of Afghanistan in my mind, of it being a country where women could do lots of things. And as I was growing up, I was watching a very different Afghanistan. And we know that the history of Afghanistan has been really tumultuous, it's been really violent, and it's been very disappointing, especially for what it's done to the rights of women. And as a young girl, I was always very aware that I had a lot of opportunities and I had a lot of liberties that not every girl had. I had a family who really supported me, and if I said that I wanted to be a doctor, they would say, well, let's see how we can get you there. So I became a doctor. And about a year later, I decided I wanted to try writing stories. I'd been someone who loved reading always, and books I thought were a way to explore the world, to explore myself. And I decided to try writing. And to try writing, I decided I wanted to write about the thing that was most important to me, the stories that were most compelling to me. And as a girl who grew up in a country where I could be so much and do so much, I decided I wanted to write about the struggle that girls in other parts of the world experienced. So my first novel was actually for adults, and it's called The Pearl That Broke Its Shell. And it's the story of a young girl in Afghanistan. And she is the youngest in a sisterhood of only daughters. So this family decides to make use of an old custom in Afghanistan. And they decide to make this young girl a bacha posh. And what a bacha posh is a girl dressed as a boy. She's transformed just physically and reintroduced into society as a boy. But when she becomes a boy in Afghanistan, she gets a whole lot of liberties and privileges that she wouldn't otherwise have as a girl. And she begins to take on a confidence that she wouldn't otherwise have as a girl, because there are things that she can do. She can raise her voice, she can run in the streets, she can look people directly in the eye when she's having conversations. The expectations on a girl are very different. And we see that happen not just in Afghanistan, but we do see that happen in other countries too. I've seen that happen in the United States as well, not just for me when I was a girl, but I've seen it happen for me throughout my career also. So this young girl in my first novel is transformed into a bacha posh, and all of a sudden she's got a whole new life and she's got a whole new set of potentials within her until she becomes a child bride at the age of 13. and then she's got to figure out how she's going to survive these circumstances. Now, the conversations that stemmed from that book, the book clubs that I was able to Skype in with, the feedback that I got from emails was amazing. People were they found a lot to talk about. What is the meaning of gender? What are the rights of girls? How much does religion and culture have to do with what we expect from our daughters and what kinds of limitations we put on our daughters? And so from that came the idea that why not do this for a younger audience? Why not start these conversations with a crowd that is maybe younger but still smart enough and so tuned in to what we need to be talking about, where we can change the expectations from a younger age. So that's the reason that I wanted to write this story. And in this story, we meet a young character, Obaida. And Obaida is also in a family that only has daughters. And Obaida's father is injured badly in a bombing in Afghanistan, and we do hear about these things that continue happening in Afghanistan. So Obaida's father is badly injured, and their circumstances change drastically. So whereas her father was once a breadwinner, he's now demoralized, he's an amputee, he can no longer provide for his family, and they're forced to move back to a village to get the support of their extended family. And from there, they decide, at the encouragement of an aunt, to maybe make Obaida into a bacha posh. And maybe this will bring good fortune unto the family and boost her father's spirits and help to restore them a bit. And so Obaida, who has lived 10 years of her life as a girl, all of a sudden becomes a boy. And she has to figure out, what does this mean about her? How different is she just because she is a boy? And she, in school, meets another child, another boy, once she becomes that boy. And this boy kind of takes an interest in her in a curious way. And then she figures out that this boy has a secret too. So I'll read to you a short passage from the book. And in this scene, this is where Obaida has met this other boy and has figured out what's going on here. I take a deep breath in and exhale my question, careful to lower my voice even though there's no one within yards of us. Are you a bacha posh? Of course I am, he says with a funny smile. His voice is softer than it was the last time we spoke. Something heavy in the air between us disappears. I can't help but stare at his lips and his face. Just for a second, I can see him as a girl. I picture him with long hair, and his face makes total sense. But I'm not new to this like you are. You better get used to it quickly or you'll attract a lot of attention, and it won't be good attention. I bite my lip. I know he's right. Several kids look at me with curiosity. Others don't notice me at all. Then there are the rare ones that stare outright, like they've spotted an extinct animal. What should I do? You're a bacha posh. Forget everything else and be a boy. But I've been a girl my whole life. How can I forget everything? It's not as hard as you might think. He fidgets with his hat, adjusting the rim so it shields his eyes from the sun. I think I can help you. What's your name? I ask him. Rahim. His grin is mischievous. Rahim, I repeat. And before? Rahima, he says. His grin fades. Her grin fades? What should I call this person? I figure he won't like me very much if I refer to him as a girl in any way, even if it's just in my head. I make up my mind that Rahim will be a boy and nothing else. But now that name sounds like it belongs to someone else. I don't think I would even turn my head if I heard someone calling Rahima on the street. Is it possible to leave your name behind? Could I ever not be Obaida? I can't imagine it. That might be what's holding me back from being like Rahim. We sit on an old tire left on the side of the schoolyard. Rahim is wearing jeans thinned at the knees and a polo t-shirt. I'm wearing cargo pants meant for a boy younger than me, so my ankles stick out. Was it hard for you? He does not ask me what I mean. He does not shy away from the question. He knows why I'm asking. It's nice being able to talk to someone who gets me. In the beginning, I was a girl dressed in boy clothes. That was really hard. I didn't know how to act. I wanted to cross my legs and fix my headscarf. He laughs at the thought of it. I laugh too, trying to imagine what Rahim would look like with a headscarf tied to his wizard's hat. It's as silly as the American actor dressed like a grandmother. But then I realized I couldn't be a girl dressed in boy clothes. I had to be a boy wearing my clothes. This is the best thing. You can wake up and throw on those ugly too short pants and run to school. You should jump up and down and be loud when you want to be and eat all you can. You should tell people what you think, score goals, and let your father look at you like you're the future president of Afghanistan. How do I do that? Raheem stares at me. I start to regret my question. I feel like he's about to pick me apart in that painful way he does. Stand up, he says. His voice goes from delicate to rough in no time. I do it, wondering for a split second if I have tire treads on my backside. Do you remember what I told you the other day? Look at the way you stand, the way you hide your eyes. Being a boy is not all in your pants. It's in your head. It's in your shoulders. He's jabbing at me to make his point. Cut it out, I mutter. What? Raheem cocks his head to the side and flicks my earlobe. I swipe at his hand, but I'm too late and get nothing but air. I said, cut it out. I'm annoyed. Raheem has a way of spoiling conversations with his antics. He palms my forehead and pushes me toward the ground. This time, I kick at him. I fall to the ground too, but manage to bring my foot to his shin on the way down. He lets out a howl and claps triumphantly. Better, he says. Stand tall. Stick your chin out like you're daring me to hit it. Set your feet apart. Keep your palms open. Let your arms swing while you walk. If you hear something behind you, turn around and look for it. When you run, slap your whole foot on the ground, not just your toes. Are you carrying eggs in your pockets? Eggs. No? Then don't walk like you are. Run like you're not afraid of cracking shells. He points at my feet, nudges my chin and my elbows. I listen to his words and feel my body loosen. It's easier to breathe. Why is that? What else? You're a boy, not a bacha posh-a. If you get that, there is nothing else. Boys aren't supposed to have weaknesses. Boys are built of rock and metal. We eat meat and show our teeth. And girls? Girls are made of flower petals and paper bags. They eat berries and sip hot tea like something might jump out of the hot water and bite them. I was torn, half of me angry at his depiction of girls and the other half of me proud not to be one for now. I don't know if that's true, I say. I don't want to contradict him, but I've never thought of myself as a paper bag. Tell me honestly, you're happy being a bacha posh? Is that even a question? Why would I want to be anything else? He looks at me as if I've got potatoes for ears. You know what it is to be a girl. Was it anything worth being? I'm not sure how to answer. He starts to stroll the length of the schoolyard. I follow, trying to synchronize my pace with his. Left foot, left foot. His legs are longer than mine, and I fall off beat often. Me, I didn't like it one bit. I didn't realize I had a choice, or I would have asked my mother to change me years ago. Do you know what I used to do when I was a girl? Help in the kitchen, help with the laundry, serve tea to guests, run from the boys in the streets. Well, I did all those things too until a few weeks ago. Did I hate it? Maybe I did. Maybe it was all awful and I didn't know any better. Maybe everything had been blurry till this exact moment, this one conversation. It just feels so strange right now, I confess. It'll get easier. It sort of just happens. For me, it happened the day I got this hat. He points to his blue cap. The day I got this, I knocked over 4 boys playing Grossay and stayed on my feet for the whole game. I haven't fallen once as long as I have this hat on. It's my good luck charm. Stick close by and it'll rub off on you too. Raheem looks over at his friends who are heading back into the school. I feel lucky to have this exciting new friend. If we were girls, we wouldn't have ever met. It's only because we're a special kind of boy that we have found each other. Maybe his hat has rubbed off on me already. When he turns back to me, I can see the girl in his eyes. He takes my hand and squeezes it between his long, thin fingers. Nobody helped me when I first changed, but I'm going to help you. We'll be like brothers, he laughs. I laugh too. Not because he's funny, but because I'm happy. He always seems to have a look on his face, and now that I can stare at him straight on and not out of the corner of my eye, I can see what that look really is. Raheem looks like he can do anything. Thank you. So, one of the reasons that I mentioned I wanted to write this story was, books are multi-purpose tools. And one thing that they do is they can impart knowledge about another culture, about another set of customs, about another religion, about another geographical area. And we can travel with books, and that's what we do in these stories. But I think there are also really good ways to learn to use these books to stimulate conversations where children can start to look inside too. And so for kids who are picking up these books, our kids are smart. They're smart readers, and they're able to grasp things that we might not think that they can. But I've been talking to a lot of young students, and they really have that ability to perceive themselves in stories, to pick out from characters what they relate to and what they don't relate to. And I think there's a lot that they can learn from a story that's more of a mirror for them, where they start to look inside and think about what kind of a character they would want to be in their own journeys. And I know that's what I did when I was a child, reading under the covers past my bedtime. And I hope that that's what kids will do with the stories that I'm sharing. And I think through the conversations that we've been having, that is what we've been seeing. So I'm going to leave it there, and I'm going to open it up to questions. I think we have a few minutes, if I've timed this right. We have about 10 minutes for questions, and I will take questions on anything, and from all ages. So kids, feel free to speak up. Yes?
Hi, so I've read all of your novels. I'm currently reading A House Without Windows, and my friend and I buddy read them. And it's just interesting to see the tension between the women from Afghanistan of old versus in this book, because I find myself gasping, like, you can't think that, you can't do that, And I giggle every time I read one of the recipes for is it jadoo, the little spells?
Yeah.
How did you come up with those? It tickles me every time.
It's so the question is actually about my third adult novel, which I get to plug right now because she brought it up, not me, right? So that's A House Without Windows, which is the story of a woman who's imprisoned in Afghanistan she's accused of murdering her husband. She meets other women who are imprisoned for crimes of immorality. It's a very loose and vague term. And the mother in that character is a very colorful woman who is a skilled sorceress. So she practices jadoo, sort of this black magic that's in Afghanistan. That was a fun thing for me to be able to throw in these little bits of culture. And so how did I come up with all of that? Well, I didn't have to come up with it, because in my husband's family, there is someone a generation back, or 2 generations back actually, who sort of dabbled in this area of black magic. And so some of the things that the stories that are passed down to us, the things that she did, like chopping up snake skins and folding it into the spinach and feeding it to her nemesis, and then watching her nemesis kind of itch and crawl at the next family gathering. So those are stories that have been passed down in our family. And there is sort of this superstitious belief that threads through Afghanistan, and then some rare people are able to take that into the realm of black magic. And I thought that was such a cool concept that I wanted to incorporate it into the story. So.
It's awesome. I love it.
Thank you. Hi.
Hi. It's such a pleasure meeting you, because we chose your book for our book club, and it's coming this Tuesday, When the Moon is Low. What I want to know, though, you're a doctor as well as a writer. Which of this profession you like? Medicine or writing?
Yeah, that's a very tough question. So I always compare it to being invited to 2 parties on a Saturday night and not knowing which one you want to go to. I think, as a doctor, you get to do so much. Especially as a pediatrician, you're involved in a family's life at some really poignant moments, some really sensitive times, and you can make a really big difference, even just by reassuring, if nothing else. I also really enjoy what I'm able to do with books. I'm able to reach, I think, more people through my stories. I'm able to reach people across the world. And when I get messages from people that they were inspired or touched or were able to gain some kind of hope for themselves through my fictional characters, it's pretty humbling. So I think they're both incredible fields, and I every day feel blessed that I can do both of them in some way.
Oh, thank you.
Thank you.
This might not be a fair question, but what future do you see for Afghanistan, and what are the implications for women?
So that's a really great question, and it's a very complicated one. What is the future for women in Afghanistan? I think it's very easy to look at the day-to-day events in Afghanistan and see setbacks and see disappointments, because those things happen all the time, and not just for women in Afghanistan, but for the general population and security in Afghanistan. There are recent attacks, either specifically on women or on the broader population when you have more extremist elements who still are making their presence very much felt. But when I take a step back and look at what has happened in Afghanistan between the time of the Taliban, during the time of the Taliban, I mean, we all know that it was just really terrible there. And I've spoken with an Afghan MP, actually, a parliamentarian, who said it was the darkest time for women in Afghanistan, not being able to be really part of the world at all. To go from that to know that in 2014 there was a woman who ran on the ticket for vice presidency in Afghanistan, to know that there are female journalists who are sharing the stories of what's happening in Afghanistan with their fellow countrymen, to know that there are women who are teachers, who are performers, who are expanding their role in the arts, in the sciences, in all fields. They're working so hard to do that. And yes, they're facing a lot of backlash. Yes, they have more obstacles than I have had growing up in this country. But I think that they are working so hard to be their own heroes that I can't imagine them giving up the fight at any point. So as long as they have an environment that at all opens the doors for them, I think they're going to continue to make progress.
Hi.
Hi.
What sort of research went into doing these types of books?
So all different kinds of research. Luckily, I have my family to turn to, and I have the rich stories that come from both my family, from my husband's family. And then, of course, I do research making sure that if there are political events that are happening at certain key moments, if I do, for example, in my historical fiction aspect, I go through and I use archived sort of information that anthropologists and others have put together in the form of textbooks. I use photographs a lot so that I can paint a geographic picture of the area that I'm talking about. And I'm pretty diligent. So even if I talk about, the trees that are in an area, I make sure that I research and know the species of trees that are growing in one particular area, because I do want to create an authentic picture of that country. So the research is actually a really fun part. For my recent adult book, I was able to use a Human Rights Watch report on the situation, who had interviewed women in prison in Afghanistan and gone through their arrest registries and, faced off with the women to figure out what had happened and collected their cases. So the research is an incredible part of it. Yeah.
Hi. Okay. All right. Well, hi. I had a quick question. Well,
Yes.
not that quick, maybe. But what's one of your favorite moments from The Pearl That Broke Its Shell and from When the Moon is Low?
Okay, from The Pearl That Broke Its Shell, I think one of my favorite moments comes from one of my favorite characters, and it is, and this will say a lot about me personally, okay, but there is a moment where there is a wedding ceremony, and they have brought a religious figure, this mullah, to come and officiate this and say a prayer. And as he's going through, the prayer, of course, is in Arabic, and he stumbles and he messes up a word in it, because Afghans don't speak Arabic, but we learn the prayers sort of by hearing them. And nobody realizes that he messes up except for this young girl's very spunky aunt, who's always there and who's always in her corner. And she points out in front of a room full of people that he screwed up. And he repeats it. And she's like, "You screwed up again," and she calls him on it. And when she calls him on it, she's showing him that he really is not an authentic voice. He's not a spokesperson. He is not an authority for the religion, that they own their religion themselves, and that he is not above being fallible and completely wrong. And then that moment, I love that character, and I wish that I could do that at all times, everywhere I go. Thank you for the question.
So this is a kind of more basic question, but what is one of the favorite books that you've written?
I get that question a lot, and it's a really, really tough question, because sometimes I feel like it's, of your children, which one is your favorite? I think I like them all in sort of a different way. This one, of course, right now is sort of very near and dear to me, because I like writing. I like talking about women's issues and girls' empowerment and all of that stuff, and what it means to be a global citizen, really. That's what we've been talking about lately for children of any kind of identity. And to be able to have this book and have conversations with young people who are really so smart and who are going to go on to do amazing things, And if I can at least be one conversation that happens on your way to being amazing, then that's an incredible opportunity for me. So right now, this book is giving me a lot.
I read One Half from the East and I liked it. Do you think you're going to write any more children's books?
I am. So I'm really glad to hear that you liked it. Thank you for reading it. And I'm working on my second children's book right now. It should be out, we think, in the winter of 2018. I'll be finishing it soon, but it takes that long for a book to go from something that I've written to an actual book that you can hold in your hand, because there's so many people that work to make it so. But I really love writing, and it's my passion now, and so I don't think I'll stop. So I hope you keep reading.
Thank you.
Hi, I'm from Texas, and our book club has chosen your Pearl novel for our next book. I haven't read it yet, but I'd like to let them know next month how you got started having your first book published, and just simply what the process was for you.
It was sort of a very amazing process for me. When I started writing, I wrote for myself. I wasn't sure what would happen to it. I didn't tell anybody that I was writing, because you never know what's going to happen, what's going to come of it. I didn't know anything about the industry, so I sat down and I Googled, how do you get a book published? And what Google told me was that you have to get an agent first, and then an agent will submit it. And so I started writing early on, actually when I was expecting. And I had a deadline. I need to finish this before this baby comes into my world, and I wanted it out to literary agents, submitted before the baby came in. And that's what I did. And I was in labor when I got a phone call from an agent who wanted to represent my book. So I will never forget my publishing process, because it was such a memorable moment where I couldn't answer the phone. And my husband had to give her a call and say she's not really into talking right now.
Well, what's your favorite author?
Who's my favorite author? Now that's a really, really tough one, because there are so many authors, right? And all these authors are so different. Some write really good mysteries. Some just give us really smart stories in a different way. Some take us into history. So for me to pick my favorite is really, really tough. I will name a few. I love Khaled Hosseini, and not just because he gave a great plug for my first book. I think Jhumpa Lahiri is amazing. Joyce Carol Oates, who I actually was able to sit at dinner last night with Joyce Carol Oates, is just amazing. Gabriel Garcia Marquez, and Judy Blume, who you might recognize from some of that. So that's a handful, but there's so many. I learned something from every single book.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Do you plan to write any books for the children in Afghanistan?
So the question is, do I plan to write books for the children in Afghanistan? I think, every book that I write for everyone. And I write, not just for children to read this book in the United States or in Canada, but I write it for a child anywhere. And, I write this for children in Afghanistan to see themselves as strong, as capable, as full of potential, no matter what clothes you're wearing, no matter what your name is. And I want that same message to be conveyed to children who are in this country too. And in that way, I think that, a story can really be universal in its core theme. We should be able to find something that we can relate to. And I'm hoping that this book will find ways to relate to children everywhere.
Thank you.
Thank you. All right, thank you so much for your time. I appreciate you all attending. Have a great festival.
This has been a presentation of the Library of Congress. Visit us at loc.gov.